Hi, everyone. As you know, I put the word out and an invitation to any existing members of Parliament or candidates running in the upcoming South Australian March election. And today I'm talking with Rod, and I'll let him introduce himself to you before we get talking. Hi, Rod.
Yeah, good day, Lisa. How are you? My name's Rod Keogh. I live here in Streaky Bay on the west coast of the Eyre Peninsula. I've chose to run for the seat of Flinders in the coming election. So we are an existing business owner and a member of the community here, and have been for the last 18 years, living on the west coast of the Eyre Peninsula, or far west or upper west coast of the Eyre Peninsula. Historically, we're a West Australian family that's moved to South Australia because of the beautiful weather and the sunny skies and the beautiful nature that we have out here. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting process of running for politics.
Yeah. Can you perhaps tell people, so the seat of Flinders, what area does that cover? I know that covers a lot of the beautiful coast, but what towns would we be looking at?
So the seat of Flinders is one of South Australia, one of three really large electorates of South Australia. Flinders covers Port Lincoln, Tumby Bay, Cow, across to Kimber, Woodner, Poochera, Ceduna, Streaky Bay, Elliston, Port Kenny, Penong, Nundroo, right out to the West Australian border, but it also incorporates the unincorporated pastoral land, which is the Aboriginal communities out at Yalada, Maralinga, Cook, Kaniba, and all the Aboriginal communities, which is really, really interesting and a very dynamic, very dynamic electorate. Lots of interesting features here, from fishing, farming, aquaculture, and the unincorporated areas or outback areas. So very dynamic,
It
and
is.
it's huge. It's 100,000 square kilometers of electorate with around, I think it's about 33,000 people. So a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So what are you currently hearing from people at the moment? What are the challenges that people in different areas are facing? And do you find a bit of a common theme, or is there a bit is it quite different between people being right on the coast to the farming people? What is it looking like at the moment?
Well, look, it's an extremely large electorate with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different industries as well. So, look, and I think, speaking as an Australian, it's a lot of the same common problems that we're having here. Is one is, housing affordabilities, mental health, drought conditions, so you're dealing with a lot of the farmers, and then we're also unincorporated outback areas. You're dealing with the Aboriginal communities as well, which all got lots of different challenges. But there's no everyone's got their own opinions on what's happening. Health and affordability of housing is always up on the foremost of everyone's, on everyone's mind. And being so far from Adelaide, there's almost like we're all out here in regional areas, and I don't think I'm just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for multiple regional areas where we feel like we're on a different planet than Adelaide. There's a barrier between Adelaide, on what Adelaide wants and what the regional areas need. So and again, we're not really heard out here. So again, health systems, is always, health and affordability of housing is always on the tongue of everybody.
Uh-huh. What about availability of housing? What is it
Oh,
like out there? Are they building out there? Um,
look, affordability of housing out here in regional areas is ridiculous. Like, services for a start, building houses trades and just trades in general. There's a lack of trades. There's a lack of new buildings. There's a lack of new developments. But realistically, a lot of that comes back to support. So like if we were looking at the infrastructure, to start from the ground up to build a better region, we need the infrastructure that comes from either Port Augusta or Adelaide. But regionally, we miss out on a lot of the stuff. Like we're talking basics, water, power. Power is absolutely out of control with prices. But water, a lot of these new developments that we have that could potentially start here is we can't start them because we don't have the basic facilities or the basic infrastructure. We seem to be left, like it's all good and well trying to get housing out here, but if you can't have the basics of infrastructure, we can't start these new developments. Hence, people don't move out here.
Yeah. And yet, I know where I am currently at the moment, they are squeezing houses in everywhere they can, clearing out the farmland. Um, you think that they would start looking a bit more outside the box, and not that you want to become a city and be, really, really busy, but there would have to be some land, some space where surely they could actually start looking at providing some affordable housing. Uh,
Yeah.
because look at the prices of housing currently at the moment. People are paying $700,000 for a three-bedroom house, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
ridiculous.
Well, you're talking the same prices in the regional areas. Like, on an average, a house here in Streaky Bay is, between 500 and $1 million, like 500,000 and $1 million, so it's all good and well wanting new houses and all these estates, but again, it comes back to the basics of starting new developments. Like if we were to go and speak to the councils or stuff around Ceduna, you definitely we have the space and the land to be able to build new houses, but and I think like, I haven't had I've only just started my campaign, and I haven't spoken to the councils because, coming into the new year, no one's working. But generally speaking, and looking at the developments around or potential development areas around these, around regional areas is, we don't have a rainfall. We don't have an average rainfall to be able to fill water tanks. So the basic necessities to start developments is power and water. Power nowadays is relatively, and it's an easy fix. Renewable energies is always, like where we own, or we've owned a caravan park that we over the years built into a 100% standalone renewable energy caravan park. So we know that these projects can be completed and developments can be completed with standalone systems. But if you don't have water, you don't have a house. Basic fundamentals of developments is infrastructure. And if you don't have that kind of infrastructure, which we don't get out here, you can't start these housing developments, and you can't address these. There's so many, again, like you get so many things rattling around in your head when you're coming into a position like running for a seat of Flinders, and so many different ideas. But again, we're going to hit the ground and we're going to be asking the questions about what people are wanting and what people are needing. But just from an outsider at the moment, I'd love to see new projects started for one of the big things that I think, and maybe rattling on here a little bit, but and it's a really important thing. Aging communities are and regional areas are generally aging communities. Like there isn't the traffic in these places anymore that a lot of and there's no industry and no infrastructure here for the kids to stay. So a lot of the kids move away. The mum and dad or grandma and grandpa, they have these beautiful big houses, the big farmlands. The kids don't want to stay here because there's nothing for them here anymore except the farm. And then, all of a sudden, grandma and grandpa have got this huge house that they potentially, they can't live in anymore. And, like they don't, a lot of the older generations, they don't want to move away from here, but they can't sell their farmhouse and move into town. Like uh, and it comes back to, lifestyle villages or lifestyle properties where you can, potentially, in areas like this, it'd be nice to be able to have the land and the development for, potentially the aging communities to, again, free up houses, the larger houses for families and create an industry and also present the elderly people with a beautiful way of living without having to go, again, regionally, where we're away from regional hospitals and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole list of things that we can talk about. But
Yeah.
if you remove if you can build these beautiful lifestyle properties or investments for the aging communities that are inside the regional areas, um, so they've got a beautiful way of life. They don't have to move away from the Eyre Peninsula. They've got
Yeah.
a,
And
it's,
I,
and
I
it frees up house.
yeah.
It frees up a lot of things. Things just move generally.
Yeah.
The average, they just move, so.
And also, I find I've had quite a few older friends who have lived along the coast or along the river and still fit enough that they don't want to have to leave their home,
Absolutely.
but end up having to because the services that they need are a 2 hour drive away. And they don't have,
Absolutely.
so if they had local services, it would actually keep many people within their community, which is better for both physical and mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
and to have not just nursing homes, but like you said, villages
Yeah,
where if they do have to downsize and leave their large homes, they could still be within their community. And that's surely
absolutely.
that's got to be good for people's health.
Well, you're talking, like it becomes a housing affordability, like they can sell their house. It's really difficult. Like I said, it's really hard although some of the kids, they move away from these areas, they never move back, so the farms, farmland is, it's imperative to maintain the farming community, it's a very big backbone of South Australia's economy, um, and it's not with the challenges and I haven't done my due diligence here. Like this is the campaign trail. Again, I'm not from politics. I'm a business owner. So a lot of the things I'm learning as I go, and it's about speaking with the people. And like some of these, again, the older people that are getting to that stage is they can't sell their farm. If they can't sell their farm, they can't move somewhere else. Health services here are absolutely appalling. I mean, in and on the West Coast here, regional, and not even West Coast, regionally, the hospital systems are absolutely appalling. We should be, realistically, we should be putting in a lot of money for the infrastructure to keep. Again, you want to talk about hospital ramping and all that kind of stuff. Well, if we go to a hospital here, it's a 7 or 8 hour drive to get into a hospital, and then there's a good chance you're not even going to get in. Like money should be put into regional areas, and I mean regional hospitals. The, Making regional hospitals good again. Like you need to be able to put the infrastructure and the money back into Ceduna Hospital. Ceduna then has not only does it have the regional, like it's a larger hub. So Sejuna's, the population's 3.5, maybe 4,000. Yeah, again, it's something around that. But it's got a really good hospital there. But it's understaffed, undermanned, and if we have like, my parents are aging and they're in the local area, if they want assistance and help, it's very few and far between. They can't necessarily get in, and if they like if they want to get into a hospital, they've got to go to Adelaide. I lost my dad, let's say recently, 2 years ago, in this regional system because it was again, we're talking yeah, he was seen by locum doctors here in Streaky Bay, just again, blow-in doctors, doctors with absolutely zero interest and probably zero bedside bloody table manner, and they misdiagnosed him 3 times here in Streaky Bay, and it was the locum system. Because, continuity of a doctor in a regional area, you're talking with proud people that probably never go to a doctor, but when they do go to a doctor, there's a problem. So because there was no continuity in that system, my dad ended up, or my stepdad, Alan Payne, he ended up going down to Lincoln, where they found that he had a pulmonary embolism, so blood clots in the heart. So by the time he got down to Port Lincoln, which was 3 weeks, a 3 week onset, they found the blood clots in his heart. And then they sent him to the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Like, had of the doctors done the due diligence and seen that he'd never been to a doctor before, they would have really maybe looked in, or if there was a continuity in the doctor, they would have been able to find that problem first before he got to Adelaide, put him on the right medication, he'd still be here today. But he got to Adelaide, and then, by the time he got to Adelaide, the pulmonary embolism was too far gone, and we lost him in December. So, we're talking about regional, like you're talking about a lot of different aspects here. Is about keeping people in regional, keeping the elderly people here. It reduces the strain on the Adelaide system. But to do that, there has to be a whole list of things before we get to it. So basically start from the basics, rebuild the hospital systems, make affordability and housing easier to access for either health staff, so we can engage with these people and get them here full time instead of having locum doctors in. Port Lincoln needs to be upgraded. Like Port Lincoln's a major hub here in the Eyre Peninsula. So if we put more services and more outreach staff there, that they can potentially go through our electorate or the regional areas, so they can, keep our aging community, happy and safe and in their own houses. And I think, you're on a winner. You can start moving forward with, again, building a better region.
It's a bit of it's like it's cumulative, isn't it? It's like an ongoing cycle where you need the services and you need the people working out there. You need the jobs to retain the community, but at the same time, you need the housing and
Yep.
services to attract the people to come and work in
Yeah.
the hospitals and provide mental health and provide
Yeah.
dental care.
Yep.
It's like that cycle, isn't it? It's just forever
Yeah. Yeah.
going round and round, waiting
We
for something to start.
we seem to wait, and it's not just for the health system here. We seem to wait until there's a major issue. Like, we seem to wait until it's got to a point where it's in damage control, instead of, you know, early um what's the word? Early preventative measures. So, and this comes from either the health system, mental health, child, medical, whatever you want to, however you want to say it. But early prevention, you know, bring it in at the beginning. We start to see we've got issues here. So take it back to the very basics. What's the basic foundations of life? Like, you really need to start from the beginning, and then before these issues become a big problem and become out of control, we need to be we need to be looking at what we can do to prevent it getting from point A to point Z. And if we can get in early and start to understand what people are needing to stay in their own homes, which we do know, basic health services, either, aged care, outreach nursing, social work, mental health, like we would find that you would create a content region that has the accessible services. Like, you'll be able to access the services. At the moment we can't. And I think, like, you're looking at uh my wife Simone, she's a social worker here in this area, and you're talking about the aged care and the health system here. There's all this funding for aged communities, but there's, and I forget the name of it. I should have written it down, but they can access the aged care help, but there is actually no help. There's no workers to actually do the job.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So they
exactly.
get they get the funding. Yep, okay, fair enough. They can get the funding for a nurse and a gardener and, assistance for the aged care, but
Yeah,
they've got the money. They can't provide the service because there is no one here. You can't attract people here to do the job because there is no services.
yeah,
So again, start from the basics, start from the beginning, and work our way through this. We need to start from the beginning and really look at where we are at now and how we can get to where we need to be, It's
Yeah.
basic. Well, it's not
And,
basic. It's there's a lot
yeah.
of there's a lot of steps in the way. It sounds easy when you talk about it, but it's not. It's a
No.
process.
And governments seem to be afraid of scrapping something and starting fresh. You know, here we are, we're 2026, and child protection, for example, we keep throwing band-aids
Absolutely.
at a broken system, at a broken department, at things that
Absolutely.
aren't working. And I don't know how many times I've spoken to ministers and premiers saying, you know, here's a new plan. Let's start with this, and we'll spend a little bit of money to begin with. But that roll-on effect, we will save millions of dollars, firstly,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because we will support birth families better from the
Yeah.
onset. So we have the really early intervention and preservation,
Absolutely.
prevent the kids
100%.
from entering into the system. And if they do enter the system, we'll be fully supporting carers so that we don't have any children in residential care unless absolutely necessary. And then the roll-on effect of that is that we then have children growing up in families, which always provides best outcomes. The kids will hopefully grow up. They will get part-time jobs. They will finish school. They're not committing crime, a youth crime. They're
Yep.
not going to engage with police and the justice system, hold up the courts. They're not going to go to jail, and they're going to get a job and pay taxes and give back.
Yep.
No one wants to listen to that. They want to
No.
just keep throwing money
Yeah.
at the same groups that are all run by the same people.
Yep.
We have we have that vulnerable community that is not seeing any benefit and not improving outcomes. We have our Aboriginal community, which are overrepresented in child protection, but in more than just child protection ways, they're having billions of dollars of funding thrown at them. However, they're not receiving the benefit. It's
It's the
it's all
top
the
heavy.
organisations and the
It's
new
top heavy.
CEOs and the
Yeah.
new managers and the new teams
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
supervisors. So by the time money is getting to community,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a drop
Don't
in the
worry.
bucket.
It's
And
it's
who's
uh it's
benefiting? The
it's a
bureaucrats and the
it's a
government.
common it's actually a common conversation that my wife and I have. Like it's the same. It's that top heavy approach. So they'll create these new policies, and then they'll structure their new policies with a new policy manager, a new policy this, and a new policy advisor, and like I think Simone was talking about the funding they got for I think it was something to do with the housing and mental health, but realistically, by the time it got down to Sejuna, that 15 million or 10, let's say $10 million only worked out to be, a couple 100,000, 300,000, 4, 5, 600,000. But
Yeah.
it's so top heavy, like they, the government at the moment, and it's not just in this, the government in general is a very top heavy beast. Like there is so many positions that should be, well, they make positions for another policy, or they create these roles to stay in politics. Like it, in an ideal world, you would have a productivity commission or a commission that oversees an independent productivity commission, and they would look at all the top heavy parts of the government, and they'll go, well, you don't need X, 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 X positions. They can be scrapped, and because you're absorbing the funds that's realistically meant to be going to the people that are in need at most. There's
Yeah.
lots of people lining their pockets, but the people that are really hurting are the ones that keep hurting, and they keep re-entering the system. And it's a systematic failure and I'm not just talking on childcare protection, I'm talking on absolutely everything:
Yeah.
environmental, fishing, childcare, housing. You have so much money getting absorbed and wasted into paying the people that should be looking at ideas and options for us to move forward as a society.
Yeah.
So I get it. I fully get it. And it's very hard to, before I chose to run for the seat of Flinders, I have absolutely no political knowledge. I'm a business owner for the last 17 or 18 years. I've run my own business. We bought and sold businesses. We've invested millions of dollars into infrastructure projects around South Australia, regional South Australia, and we are just getting met with the same thing. Top heavy departments creating policies that don't work, that affect multiple people with no consultation and no real justified data. They just create a role for themselves within inside that parliament and they hold on to it. And here we are now. This is why I'm running for the seat of Flinders. Yes, I've got big problems with my own business through government bureaucracy, red tape, and jargon. But what I can do is what I can see is that I'm willing to fight for that because I know how disastrous this can be for not only myself but for many other people that want to get into business in South Australia. So I'm fighting for realistically fighting for the people, but also trying to fight for change.
Yeah.
And if I can bring to light some of um, the overreach which we will be doing over the course of not only the election trial, but if we do win the seat of Flinders, like it gives me the access to be able to start to challenge these decision makers on again the housing, environmental, because we know firsthand what they're doing. Like it's horrible, absolutely horrible.
That was one of my questions for you. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for lived experience, because nothing can you can bring somebody in to manage a portfolio or bring in an advisor, and they have no lived experience in that
Yeah,
portfolio, and that's the one thing I think is the game changer, and it has to be really genuine consultation,
absolutely.
not just a tick box for the public to go, okay, so that minister has met with apparently the group of people,
Yeah,
that no one ever goes to and asks them, what was that consultation like and what are you thinking? And then voices are shut down. So as a business owner, we like you've experienced your own challenges with government. And we see, almost daily or weekly in the media, in our social pages, that our local businesses are suffering and closing down. So,
absolutely. The backbone.
just and if you win the seat of Flinders, obviously you represent your community in there, but you have a voice in Parliament to speak and represent all business owners in the state, not just in your electorate. So having that lived experience would surely benefit every business owner in the
Absolutely.
state,
Yeah.
whether they're having challenges today or not. Because, some people go, oh, things are really good for me today,
Yeah.
doesn't matter what world you're in. And then a week or a month later, all of a sudden it's bit you on the backside and it's your turn. And they're going, now we need help.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been fighting the same battle, very similar battle for the last realistically with our business. We've been fighting the Department of Environment since 2000 and probably 2012, I think it was, when, we see these decisions that are getting made from in the internal department, like you're talking to departments. So ministers don't run the state, the departments run the state. The ministers are just a they're just a show. They're that little toy on the back wall there. Realistically, the departments will come in and write their policies, and that minister is only the person uh,
Yeah.
that presents the policy. And what we've seen over the years, and especially in the last 6 months, we're dealing with these new changes was a political promise by Susan Close when she took her seat. She promised that she would create whale sanctuaries, these new whale nursery areas in South Australia, and that's all good and well. And unfortunately, we're the only whale watching operation in the state. And these new rules that Susan Close put in makes it almost impossible for our business to operate. So we're going to have to, after 18 years, we're going to have to close our business down this year because of these rules. And there was no negotiation and there was no consultation with stakeholders. And I mean, stakeholders. I am the major stakeholder in the whale watching industry. We have been operating these whale watching tours 18 years. Like we've invested millions and millions of dollars into our business, but millions of dollars into the local economy, by people coming from all around the world to come and see these whales. Susan Close comes in overnight, writes stamps her authority in her policy because that's what she wants. But it's driven by the Department of Environment. And but Susan Close, she was a different kettle of fish. She was a very vocal activist in her prior days. So she would have been a bit of a forefront in developing these new protection areas. When she dropped that on us, instantly our business was, again, it's not even about money. It's about the principle of it all. Our business was worthless the following day when this new policy came out. There was no consultation, and there was actually no research. The research that was done was by a person that had never been to Fowlers. And then we'd had independent researchers working with us for 12 years that came out openly, and it's all documented data, like hard facts, scientific data, where Department of Environment just said, no, it's irrelevant. Don't, like it doesn't matter what Mr. Keogh, what that scientist says, we've got our agenda. Our agenda is to create these whale nursery protected areas because Mr. Keogh is having such a detrimental effect on the southern right whale uh, uh, recovery. And he must abide by these rules. And there was no negotiation on that period. So we just lost our business right there and then. We've sent multiple emails. I mean, multiple, 6, 7, 8, 9 emails, all written by either lawyers or me with no response. And I mean, I've written letters to Peter Malinauskas, which, if you look at my EP Cruises page, we pride ourselves on transparency, and I know that opens us up for criticism as well. But if you're transparent, and what we work on is facts and data, and if you don't lie on the facts and you can present the data, then you've got nothing to hide. So I happily say I don't have anything to hide. So when we started putting all this information out there, we just gathered support. But what it did is it just shows that the Department of Environment, and we're talking one department here, they just they don't care. They've got an agenda. Their agenda is to shut stuff down. It's okay for people in Adelaide. They think it's a great thing, but realistically, the west coast of the Eyre Peninsula is going to will suffer. Like we're talking 3,000 passengers that don't necessarily come through Ceduna. So that's 3,000 people, 3 nights, 3,000 nights accommodation. Like what I mean, 3,000 people that would come into Ceduna that won't come in. So regionally, it's going to have a massive fallout effect. And then you try and negotiate with the Department of Environment. They don't even respond to emails. Peter Malinauskas didn't even respond to the email. The CEO of Department of Environment didn't even respond. They just go plausible deniability. If I don't open the email, doesn't happen. So that's what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for that's my lived experience just in that area. And we'll talk about the health system in a second, but lived experience, like I can see what they do. I can fight against that. And whether it be me fighting or advocating, and I think that being a member of parliament or being the local member, it's not about promising the world. It's about being able to knuckle down when there's a fight to be fought and being the voice for the people that can't have a voice. You'll find that a lot of the older people will just get walked over, like be a voice for the people that can't physically do it themselves. And I think it's a really important thing. And
I
then,
I have, I have quite a few really good relationships with members of parliament. I've been able to work with quite a few of them on child protection and health and mental health type topics. Um, I don't think any government is or parliament is healthy when you have such a strong voting power
yeah,
for one party or one group of people. And I think it shouldn't be about what party can fight hardest and have the most people in there to vote. I think it would be great if we had a parliament that was full of people who didn't toe a party line and were able to go in and speak based on the needs of the people, the voices of the people, the wishes of the people. We've got a few thousand carers, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of carers go in and advocate for the same key things and talk
Yeah.
about things that they're suffering, but they're not being listened to. It's only a
Yeah.
very small group. And it's
Yeah.
like that regardless of what topic. And then when members of parliament go in and they have a new bill or a bill amendment, and a group of the community or key stakeholders think, wow, this would be game changing for everybody, only government hold the voting power, and you can't get these good bills through. You can't stop them because we have a herd mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
totally.
the community wants change. I really hope people start to pay attention and talk to all of their candidates that are running and say to them, this is where we're suffering. Um, how are you going to be my voice? Are you going to answer my emails? Are you going to make yourself accessible? I think I'm hearing from more and more people that that's what they want. They want real
Yeah.
people that are willing to speak to them and act.
I think, like, no, I know, like, it's a daunting process for me because I'm not from politics.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm a very passionate person, and anyone that's ever met me or dealt with me or been on the boat with me, or they understand, the person that I am, and I get bound up wanting to help people, and I think that's probably my biggest downfall, to be honest, because I ADHD as well. That definitely doesn't help me. But thing is like, to be a voice that's heard is a very difficult process. And what I've kind of the model that I've kind of worked on with my, and again, I'm talking about my business, and but it's worked, right? So it's worked. It's worked because it's transparent. And I think when you start talking to a lot of people and you see, and I definitely don't, Sam Telfer, I use him as he's now the local member of Flinders. Sam Telfer is a good friend of mine. Um, and he was a and honestly, he was a very good advocate for my business as well. He went to Parliament. He presented this to, on probably three or four occasions over the years. He was a very good advocate for my business. But his party politics. He's he's he is now um, locked into a fight that he potentially, as an independent, could take further or action different. Now, for me, and again, I don't have the experience in politics to understand it, but I'll learn it. But what I believe, if we were to unite as and this is all about unity, right? So unity inside, whether it be Australia, whether it be South Australia, whether it be in your electorate or your community, like, and you look at a simple thing recently with the algal bloom, and we had a specific farmer wanting to bring oysters up here and put them out at Haslam or Smoky Bay, sorry, and Haslam, one of them, and the community barricaded the boat ramp. The decision was made by Parliament, by Claire Scrivens, Purser, that they could put these oysters here in the middle of the algal bloom, 100 ton of oysters, whatever it was. And the community knew that if that, like, it had a potential to create a drastic impact on the oyster growers here. And even though it was passed in Adelaide, what fits the foot in Adelaide doesn't actually fit the foot out here. But they made that decision. But the community stood fast and they barricaded the boat ramp, and they didn't get the oysters out. Now, what that shows to me is that if you can create an alliance, and if you can align the community or align the state, and we all throw our feet, we all put our heels into the dirt, and we stand fast and we stand together as one, we can create change. And what I would hope that I can do if I win the seat of Flinders is to be able to take that mentality of creating an alliance within our electorate, our state, that if there is something that we're not happy with, you keep the transparency. Now, the thing with Sam is when he was fighting for my business, that was it. He went into Parliament, he posted his video on Parliament, but that was pretty much it. As an independent, I can create that transparency. I can use the same platform like I do now with my Facebook page, and I put that out there to our constituents, our community, and go, this is the problem that we're having. We're having this problem in Port Lincoln, and if we all engage with that one problem and we all create the alliance together, when it comes to me taking this to Parliament, I've got the whole community standing behind me or standing just behind me, fighting for that same thing because it doesn't matter what's important to me. What I mean is what's important to me isn't not necessarily important to somebody else, but because it's my problem, if I've got if we're aligning together and going, well, that's actually going to hurt Mr. Keogh and it's going to hurt the region. Let's stand behind Mr. Keogh because he's been transparent with the way he's conducted his operations, and we want this. And it could come into farming, it could come into mental health. We can create this an alliance, and then stuff will happen. At the moment, it's just everywhere. Everyone's fighting something here, there. There's a fight over there for mental health. There's a fight over here for the farmers. There's a fight over there for the fishing industry.
Hmm.
All these little spot fires, they're not aligning together to create okay, there's a fishing problem down in Port Lincoln. Let's all band together. Let's keep this public. Let's keep it open. The more public we can get behind it, the more Adelaide or federal has to listen. They can't just sit in the background and go, "Hi, that'll blow over in 5 minutes," because it's not gonna. So hopefully, if I win this seat, that's kind of the model I've run for my
Yeah.
business. Is the model that I want to do for politics is keep that transparency there, bring in the alliance of the state, and we're very connected around Australia, like with our business, and that's one positive that I have going for me is that I've got a lot of support, not only from here, but from other states as well. So
Yeah.
if I don't like something, I could just put it out there and all of a sudden you create an alliance. So
And
hopefully we can do the same.
I believe that's the key as well. We talk about relationships, and that shouldn't mean members of parliament being friends. That the important relationships are it's the networking with our people and our community. And
Yeah,
I think there's power in keeping people divided. And
yeah,
I always find the more people you bring together, um, the more informed the voice is and the more accurate it is, but also the more power. And when people do stand up,
yeah, absolutely.
that's when we get the outcomes that suit most people.
Yeah,
We've kind of flipped. I don't know whether we've ever had a parliament that's worked for us, but we elect people to work and represent for us and act for us. But it doesn't seem like that anymore because it seems that we are serving Parliament.
yeah,
And
agenda based.
yeah, and I even said to a member of Parliament, I was talking about that with them, and they said to me, "Oh, I don't really see that we work for the taxpayer, but
Yeah,
for them." And I'm like, "Well, that's why you get elected. Um, you're in a position of trust, an absolute position of privilege. Like, what a privilege to be able to go in and speak and act on behalf of people." But we see a lot of promises from people in the lead up into an election. And, we've got promises made from the last election that Labor made to carers.
yeah,
Promises
yeah,
have been broken. There's no accountability. Now, you get more respect if you're transparent and you're honest. And if
yeah,
for some reason, not because it doesn't suit the agenda, but for some reason something absolutely can't happen, well, then you come out and you tell the people and you say, "Do you know what? We tried X, Y, and Z. We've
yeah,
tried to figure this, and at the moment, it's just not going to happen because." And
yeah,
because people are transparent and honest, they earn respect.
absolutely.
At
Yeah,
the moment,
100%.
I'm not seeing much respect.
There's no respect and there's no honesty. Everyone's got an agenda. I think, and that's where the independents come in. And maybe, like it's not everyone's honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people have agenda, and a lot of people think that I've got an agenda because I've been fighting for my own business, and like it's going to benefit me to keep my business if I've got parliamentary privilege. But at the end of the day, I'm not changing the person that I'm going to be. Everyone says that, like it's, I trust me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's not. It's like going to be the person that I am before I was in Parliament. I didn't even think about running. The only reason I'm running is because One Nation wanted me to run for them. And it was an honor to have a part in what I thought. It was an honor to have somebody looking at my profile and going, oh well, like he can create change with this with the way he conducts his operation, with the way that he conducts himself. Like I'm not. I'm not an open like I am an open speaker, but I've what I found out is I'm not really good at speaking like one to one, like in that. But I'm learning. But to be in that position, it's an honor, and once One Nation kind of asked me, I was just like, well, this is only 6 weeks ago, and it's like, you know what, we actually have we actually honestly have a chance for change. And like, I trust myself and I trust my wife, and like we've got a very broad knowledge of life skills, like we have more than what a lot of people would have, like I've been working offshore for 25 years. We've owned businesses, we've started businesses, like I've come from a broken family, and abusive, I had an abusive upbringing, I was torn between families, mothers and dads, and and yet then my wife, she's had this beautiful, beautiful family upbringing, close family, all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of seen the whole process. I've been in the system, like it's like when I was young, having counseling and not having the support that I needed. But it's made me the person that I am today, like it's lived experience. And I think that the prerequisite for any candidate or any person into politics has to have like a minimum of traveling the world or owning a business, or and not and I mean working hard to create life,
Yeah.
whether it be in a business or you just have to have that. You have to have that knowledge. You have to have it. I think that it grounds you, and there's not enough people like it in politics. A lot of
No.
politicians that I see now are politicians. They are full-time politicians. They've come from either a university degree, or there's no lived experience. Like there's a few independents that I'm looking at now. And again, I've never taken any notice of politics in my whole life. It's just I've been working overseas. It doesn't really until now, until it does, and it is affecting me. But
Yeah.
it affected me. My business is an issue, yes, but the biggest thing for me was when my dad fell through the cracks. My stepdad fell through the cracks, and the health system ultimately killed him. Like he had given so much to the state over the years. Alan, you might have heard him. My parents were the owners and operators of Baird Bay Charters. They were swimming with the sea lions and dolphins here in Streaky Bay, and they'd been doing that for 37 years. They developed ecotourism for South Australia.
Yeah.
That man had put through tens of thousands of people over the years and made them happy. Like he changed their life. Then a simple thing of a locum doctor here in Streaky, because we can't get doctors out here, like we can't retain doctors. I don't know why. But the locum doctors misdiagnosed him 3 times. He went to Adelaide. He then got to the Adelaide Royal Hospital, and they fumbled around. They didn't treat the symptoms. They didn't treat the blood clot. They were trying to find the cancer. He was in general admissions. I ended up going to Adelaide, and Mum and I went to Adelaide for almost 6 weeks before he passed away. Like he held on for that much, but the failures within inside the Adelaide hospital were absolutely appalling. Again, you talk about accountability. Accountability didn't happen. Now, consultants inside the medical system were absolutely appalling. The bedside manner of the doctors inside the Adelaide hospital that we were dealing with were, I threatened to drag one outside and slap him. Like it's, that kind of thing is just appalling. He's in his deathbed, and all they wanted to do is put him to the side and let him die, instead of fighting for it. I had a meeting with Chris Picton. This is how serious it was. It's like, like there were so many failures, systematic failures within that, with the consultants. Every consultant that saw my dad change the diagnosis, change the treatment plan. So every week that they would change, every 7 days that changed a consultant within the Adelaide hospital, his treatment would change. Like we were trying to get him to Melbourne because they're the leaders in thoracic surgery, so and then they did a random operation that didn't work, they'd never done. And, that was, it was, yeah. So I had a meeting with Chris Picton, so the health minister, and also the board of the full board of the Royal Adelaide Hospital, because it was a huge failure. It was a major failure. That failure, killed him. And then I get a letter from Chris Picton at the end of after my old man passed away, and I still got the letter saying that the GP system, which is what ultimately killed him, isn't state run; it's federal. So if we want to take this further, we've got to take it into that. So where's the accountability in the doctors that are? So where's the accountability in our health system? Like all good and well if we take him to Adelaide, but what about the GPs? There's a lot of GPs that are out there that are just traveling the roads, and I'm not saying all of them, but there is some really poor treatment in regional areas that we're all missing out on. So the main driver for me getting into that isn't my business. It's that protection of the people that need protecting. The protection of the people that are either sick or injured or healthcare, kids that can't get help or treatment, social work, counseling. It's just the basic fundamentals of health is just not there. It's not present.
So,
Well,
have you found, because obviously carer community have been crying out for years and years for an independent complaints and investigation unit to manage the serious complaints over child protection, and also independent oversight of that department, because no one can make any decisions or tell them to change a decision.
yeah,
So are you seeing that there needs to be that independent avenue
absolutely.
for complaints? Because I know people can lodge complaints to APRA about something.
That's what we
And
did.
yeah, and then they will perhaps lodge the complaint there, but then they will be told that we can only manage this part of the complaint. You need to take this part to somewhere else, this part to somewhere else. Normally, by the time people go to those complaint processes, they're already distressed, exhausted,
Yeah,
they're grieving for something.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
like they're absolutely cooked, they're done.
yeah,
So then they get to these processes, and so many people start to lodge complaints, regardless of what department, and they find that then so lengthy and exhausting that they drop it. And then
yeah.
there's no accountability, and then no change, and there's no consequence for people when they do something wrong.
So I'm speaking from experience here. So my mum, like she's a widow. Like we've seen firsthand the devastating effect that this has had on her. Like um, the process that we did, we went into that complaints process, and it's so drawn out and so difficult to navigate. Like mum couldn't do it, like simple things, like simple basics we couldn't do. She couldn't do this herself. So many people fall through the cracks because of that, and I think that I personally believe that the government or these governing bodies just rely on that. It's like we'll make it that hard for a grieving widow of 70 years old. We know that, like realistically, we're talking about a huge lawsuit here for us, but we just, it's so difficult and so traumatic for the people that are suffering. Like, dad's dead. He's all right.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
ones that are left behind that are traumatized by. Mum won't even go to Port Lincoln. She won't even go to Adelaide. She won't even go to a doctor because she's terrified of the response. Like she's terrified that you know it's the same thing as what happened to Dad. Like slip through the cracks, whatever. We'll just we know that we're safe, we're protected. Like the health system protects the doctors that that uh, what's the word for it? That don't do the right job. So, and it's the same with the GP system. The GP system again, it's federally. It's not even governed by the state health system. It's governed by federal. So accountability. For us to go and attack the GP system because that was the ultimate failure. Was early diagnosis was that was the ultimate. It was misdiagnosed. It was handled incorrectly from the get-go. But if you go back onto the GP system again, it's like it's federally protected. Like you can't go to a GP and go, well, you messed up. How about, like, and again, it's holding somebody accountable. It's not even about the money. It's just
Yeah,
you're creating an unsafe network. Like if there's no checks and balances, people can get away with murder. And that's the truth. They can get away with misdiagnosing someone because, you know what? There's no repercussions for me to there's no repercussion. So I can just go on and do my 15-minute consultation. Yep, sorry, mate. You've just got a flu. Actually, no, you don't have a flu. You've got blood clots in the heart.
yeah.
But you know what? You'll be fine. The next doctor might pick it up. And it just goes on and goes on. Now, how many people have gone through exactly the same process? And then the fatality happens. And then it's traumatic. It's not a simple, have a heart attack and go on. It's like a traumatic death. Like Alan was dying day in, like every day, he was one day, one breath closer to dying, and everyone knew it. Like, oh, sorry, guys, we can't help you. We're just going to wind up his oxygen until he goes. And the doctors would, and it's exactly the way that the doctors treated us in the Adelaide hospital. And that's why, like I ended up going in and, every time the consultant walked in the morning, she'd go, "G'day, Mr. Payne, just want to let you know that you are probably going to die." And that's why I grabbed the doctor. I tell you this now, and there's no word of a lie. I grabbed the doctor after about the first week, and I grabbed him by the scruff of the collar. I dragged him out. I said, "Don't you ever, ever say that to my dad again. He knows what's happening. Like treat him with the respect that he deserves to be treated with. Fair enough, he's dying. We all know it, but you don't have to tell him every day that he's dying. Giving him some dignity. Like." There's no bedside manner anymore. There's no compassion within the industry of health. It's very cold and calculated. They change consultants every 5 minutes. Like it really is absolutely appalling. There you go. Like I get so worked up about this, and
And it probably comes back to like
sorry,
again, whether it's the health or child protection or whatever
it's the
other
same.
area, and it probably comes down to, I've met some amazing people working in
Yep,
child protection. And there's probably, I've met amazing people in the health system, in the justice system, right across the board. And then you've got others that I've met and I think, I reckon you should be out collecting trolleys or something. Like you're in
yeah,
the wrong job. Then it's
yep,
people, and then they're also put under so much pressure.
yep,
And you often have great people, great staff working against a culture that's not so great. And
absolutely.
then
And
we
then
start losing
yeah,
the
yeah, then you
amazing
lose them.
people because
Yeah,
they don't, just like we don't want to deal with that. They don't want to. And it's about everything seems to come back to the relationships, the trust, the respecting each other, the empathy, the caring. So if somehow we can start getting people, I'm not saying there aren't any, but we can start getting more people into Parliament with
yeah,
that mindset and people focus. And how do we bring everybody back to the basics? Everybody's
yeah,
treating water at the moment, regardless of what system you're in. And it's about how do we just let's get back to basics. Let's start some things fresh and really start creating some change. And if we look after people, they're going to look after us.
yeah,
People look after each other when they're happiest. So before we go,
yeah.
what can people do to support you in your run into the election? Volunteering, spreading the word. What is something people can do to support you?
Look, we're definitely taking a different approach to this. It's not glitz and glam for me. It's about connecting with people. We're not physically going out there and forcing myself on anyone. So I'd like people to reach out to me through my webpage. It is up. It's Rod Keogh at outlook.com. Reach out. My phone number's there. My phone is always open to people. Volunteers, yeah, I'd love to have volunteers. We haven't asked anything of anyone at the moment. Like we're willing just to go to this, go at this alone, whether we win or not. It's definitely going to be, and to keep it open and honest. And
Yeah.
like I don't need to force anything on anyone. Like people will follow me because they'll follow the person that I am. And the way that and I'm not saying that I'm running this as a business, but the way that my dad always said to me, in tourism is like, don't advertise. Don't force it on people because if you're good at what you do, people are going to come there. Now, we've built a business on not advertising. We don't promote our whale watching business other than Facebook. There's no big ads here. There's not whales jumping out everywhere. Like people come to see the whales because they come to see me. They come to see the whales because we run a really good operation now. And it's the same, and I'm using the same basic formula for running for the Cedar Flinders is people will come to me because they like me or they believe that I can do something for them. And I can't promise anyone anything in this, I really can't. Like I'm working my way through this. I'm not a politician. I'm just the person that is going to help advocate for the state. Actually, Australia, I've got so many other problems, so many other things, but I don't advocate just for our state. I advocate for anyone.
Yep.
And any problem, no matter where we are in South Australia or Australia, those problems are relevant to what's happening here today.
Yep.
So you look, if people would love to jump on and help out, wear the never give up t-shirt around the electorate
Uh-huh.
or the state. Happy days. Like
Yep.
sign up to the web page, reach out, connect with us, be a volunteer. Look, the more people, the merrier. And again, I'd love to catch up with everyone.
Okay, so they can contact you, and if they want to hand out some flyers at the polling booth or
Yep,
letterbox
absolutely.
or put up a cool flute or something, they can contact you on Facebook. I'll
Yeah,
get some links from you as well so that when the video
yeah,
goes up on YouTube, we'll put the links and some information in there as well.
absolutely. No, that'd be great. Look, no
And,
core flutes. We're not doing core
no,
flutes. No, it's like the same thing as handing brochures out. I don't know. I might do something a little bit different, but I always I cringe that every time that you walk past a bin, you see a brochure of mine in the bin. So we stopped doing brochures years ago, but I don't know how I'm going to do it.
yeah,
But save the rubbish, like save the environment. But we'll be definitely over the coming within the next week. We're going to have a bit more of a game plan on, on what we're
yeah.
going to do.
Uh-huh.
So
All
yeah,
righty. Thank you so much for talking to me, and everybody can keep an eye out, and we'll both post a video up and they can share
yep,
it and make contact with you.
perfect. No, that sounds great. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you.